Hey YouTube, welcome. This is Rob with Open Source Classroom. Today we're going to talk about how to resurrect your old 3D printer by replacing the ribbon cable. Alright, if you've ever turned on your 3D printer and looked at the LCD screen, you may have noticed at one point in time that you have two different temperatures when you should be reading the same temperature. When the printer is at room temperature, both of the thermistors should be reading the exact same. Well, when I turned on this printer this morning, I saw that one of my thermistors was reading much lower than the other one. And there you can see our thermistor on the hot end is reading at 14 degrees Celsius and the bed is 23 degrees Celsius. 23 degrees is the reading that it should be, and when I move the extruder around a little bit, I noticed that the temperature would jump around a little bit. And of course now it's not doing it. But basically, because the extruder moves back and forth so much, right, you can have problems with the wires. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. First I'm going to remove the excess filament in front of the extruder. Then we're going to pop off this zip tie. That's going to free up that ribbon cable in the back there. So I'm going to unplug the 10-pin connector. I'm going to slide it up through the belt bracket. And in order to get the ribbon cable all the way out, we're going to have to partially remove the smooth rod on the top of the X carriage. We're going to be able to access this smooth rod over on the side, unscrewing the smooth rod lock. Now we can move the bar halfway out, and I'll be able to pull the cable free. Next thing I'm going to do is open up the wire sheath so that we can isolate the ribbon cable. Pull this off. I'm going to go ahead and keep this for later whenever we put it back together. Now what I need to do is unplug all of the wires that are connected to the ribbon cable. This is going to include the extruder motor, the hot end, the thermistor for the hot end, and the fan. Right now I'm unscrewing the two wires that go to the hot end. Alright, let's carefully get these wires completely off of the machine. So now that we've got the old extruder wire off, let's go ahead and measure this out so that we can fit our replacement. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of extra length to it. Let's see, let's go about there. Give it a little extra. Alright. So now, we've got a couple of different things that we need to do here. Alright, here's a picture of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using 1x2 female connectors and a 1x4 female connector to bunch up these wires. This is the old ribbon cable. I'm taking a look at it to make sure that the wires are in the correct order. Now with the new ribbon cable, I'm pulling the wires off in groups according to the component that they're going to be wired to. Now I'm going back and separating each wire from its pair. Next, using wire strippers, we're going to remove about 3 to 4 millimeters of wire jacket off of the wires and get them ready for the pins. It's a good idea to spin the stranded wire after you remove the wire jacket. This will help reduce problems down the road. Now we're going to be attaching the female pins to the wires. They come in this strip like this, and basically you just bend it back and forth until it is free. Now to attach these pins to the wires, I'm going to be using a pin crimper. You can just use a pair of needle nose pliers, but if you do enough of these, it's a good investment to get one of these pin crimpers. 3 clicks down. I'm going to slide the wire in. I always look on top just to make sure that the wire rests inside where it's supposed to be. And then I'll go ahead and finish the crimp. So I'm going to attach these female pins to all the wires that are going to need them. It's basically all the wires except for the hot end wires are going to be having female pins on them. Now, after crimping, I like to go back through with a pair of needle nose pliers and just crimp up any ends on that the crimp didn't quite get tight. A little bit of extra work now just helps a lot whenever the wires need to go together. And again, I'm just checking the electrical connection, making sure that the wires are completely touching the pins. Now it's time to snap the plastic connectors on. I'm checking for colors just to make sure that the 2 colors I'm about to put the pin on are correct. And when you put these pins on, you'll hear 2 clicks. And that's how you know that the wire is secure inside. Now I'm doing the 1x4 connector for the extruder motor. And finally, the black and white wire for the thermistor. All right, now it's time to put on our last connector. This is for the hot end. And now we're going to work on the other side of the wire. I'm going to go ahead and use my clippers here just to straighten up the edge. And I've got a 2x5 10-pin connector with a strain relief that we're going to be putting on. I always have to double and triple check myself during this part because it's kind of tricky if you're not used to doing these connectors. So visualize where the wire is going into the actual connectors, and then you have to line it up right and make sure that whatever side the notch is on is going to match where you're supposed to go, because there's only one side that has the big notch in those 10-pin connectors. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze that and just double checking again just to make sure before I lock it down. You can use a pair of pliers, work fine. You just want to work it till it clicks. Now I'm going to install the strain relief, which is just an extra loop over the wire that helps prevent damage in case you tug on the wire. And that will also click into place. Alright, now that we've got our ribbon cable completed, let's take a look at the control board wire diagram. You can pause this video if you want to take a closer look. I'm going to be taking the wires from the extruder, feeding them through the electronics tray panel, and carefully fitting the wires into the controller where they're supposed to go. They make it really easy to plug in these wires. You just kind of have to, I like using those needle nose pliers. They really help me get in there. Sometimes you'll have to carefully move other wires out of the way temporarily in order to get your plug put in. There we go. Now I'm plugging in the fan wires. And we're all done with the controller. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and plug in the extruder into the 10-pin connector. I'm going to grab a zip tie and just tie this to the extruder plate. Helps to keep that ribbon cable from rubbing on the smooth rod as it goes back and forth. Now I'm going to slide my smooth rod all the way in and put the smooth rod lock back in place. Everything is going to tighten back up. And now we're going to do a little wire management here. I'm sliding the extruder all the way to the opposite end of the 3D printer to make sure that I've got enough wire. Notice I'm not putting any unnecessary kinks in the wire. Just kind of looks like a wave going from that motor to the extruder. I'm going to wrap around one layer of electrical tape for the ribbon cable, and then I wrap it around a second time, getting the X motor wires under it as well to kind of bunch them together. Now just using a little bit of tape, I'm going to get these wires in control, and then we'll get them cased back up into the wire sheath. And we'll be all done with our ribbon cable replacement. Alrighty, plugged it back in, turn it on, and what do we have? Matching temperatures. Okay, YouTube, there it is. Now you can see we've replaced the ribbon cable, our temperature gauges are reading correctly, and we're ready to print. So if you like this video, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more videos to come from Open Source Classroom.